Hi everybody, my name is Jimmy Carroll. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Tech B2B Marketing, and welcome to this special episode of the Manufacturing Matters podcast, where we're filming at the A3 Business Forum 2026. And you probably know him by now, but I have the pleasure of being joined by Alex Shikany, who is the Executive Vice President of A3. Alex, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome to be here with you, man. Appreciate it. I
Yeah.
always like starting the year with the forum and getting everybody together. So.
It is my favorite event.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great events throughout the year, but it is my favorite event for the chance to be able to see everybody and actually get to talk to them. And you go to Automate and you might see 40, maybe 50,000, we're saying this year. Yeah. And you make plans to see somebody and you might not see them at all. So for that reason, I like this one. But anyway, so jumping right in, right? We just saw a really good executive roundtable discussion that kind of looked at trends and technologies for 2026 and kind of a look back at 2025. And so 2025, the word was kind of uncertain. There was uncertainty there. There was still a lot of reason for optimism. And now as we look toward 2026, it looks like there's more opportunity. Mm-hmm. I know you're going to give your speech tomorrow and your keynote. It's going to take a deeper dive, but could you give us a sneak peek on what to expect for this year?
Yeah, I think you set that up perfectly. In terms of what I'm going to deliver tomorrow, 2025 actually ended up to be a positive momentum year from a sales perspective for robotics and machine vision industries. So we ticked up from 2024. It was single-digit percent for robotics. I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 7%. Dive deeper tomorrow. And for vision, I think it was, again, around that 5 to 7%, somewhere in there. So we saw some growth there. But when you dive into the specific segments of the different groups, robotics or machine vision, what you see is that there were bright spots and then there were areas, still companies that struggled last year. It wasn't across the board a rising tide. But I do think what you said about uncertainty last year really did impact a lot of people. There was policy uncertainty. People were dealing with different tariffs. Depending on where they were headquartered, they were having different issues with that, right? So it was kind of a mix. But in 2026, your characterization, I think, is perfect of what we just heard on the panel. My message is going to be, there is absolutely more enthusiasm, energy, and opportunity out there right now. We heard Andre from Schneider in there on the panel basically say he feels everyone just kind of knows tariffs are here for a while, and that's kind of the certainty they were looking for.
Yeah.
Are these going to just be here for a while and then go completely away? I think people are starting to see it's more likely going to be here for the foreseeable future for a little while. So let's just charge ahead, sell our products, reach out to our customers, adjust our pricing strategies. But I mean, when you look at the headlines that are being generated, you look at the interest from the US government and others, there's so many opportunities on all fronts for automation companies, and that's what excites me about 26.
Well, I love it, yeah. And one of the things that was said in that panel that I really liked was, I think it was Mike Chico from Fanuc said that the hangover sort of lifting when it comes to tariffs. It's like, it happened and let's move forward, right?
Right, yeah, and I mean, we've heard similar messages in Washington when we go meet with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. That's kind of their position, generally speaking, about it. When we say, look, less tariffs would be better for our technologies, you don't want to stifle, right? You don't want to stifle investment. Many robots that US companies deploy, we know, come from companies headquartered outside the US, right?
Right.
Very, very small number of domestic industrial robots produced here in the US today. Now that number's growing. We're seeing big announcements of factories and things. But yeah, this is the environment now. People understand that. We also have seen the growth in Automate you mentioned. 50,000 people, customers from new industries, coming to automation for the first time. The interest level's never been higher. And so you couple those two things together, the suppliers and the large part of this room here, they know they got to get going. Because if they don't, they're going to be behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
Yeah, and you mentioned Andre, and he had another really nice soundbite that I liked. And he said, hey, a lot of companies are seeming to realize that the risk of underinvesting is far outweighs the risk of overinvesting.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if I got that right, but anyway,
going too quickly. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
So it's like, don't get left behind.
No.
Right, is the idea, right?
Right.
I don't know when you started giving this market analysis. I know that your first forum was also my first forum back in 2013.
Yep.
And it may have been that year or shortly after, but one of the things I like every year in seeing your keynote is what industries are driving growth. And like, for example, like around the time of COVID, we saw an explosion in e-commerce. Naturally, people weren't shopping in stores as much anyway.
Right.
For 2026, what are some industries that are going to be key growth drivers?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I just got the data in recently, last week, so I've kind of had a few days leading up to this forum to really sink my teeth into it. And one interesting trend from 25, I'll start on the robotics side, is that general industries or non-automotive industries really accelerated. It was the lion's share again, another year posted with more non-automotive orders than actually automotive. Now that may sound initially like, well, automotive had a bad year, which isn't actually true when you look deeper. OEMs had a great year over year versus 24. It was the component suppliers that are still kind of lagging the OEMs that haven't really pulled the trigger yet. So I expect a lot of those component suppliers, to Mike's point, now that the auto companies have kind of made up their mind on what their strategy is going to be, no more tax credit for electric vehicles, they have more certainty, component suppliers are going to need more automation to fulfill demand and all that. So I expect this year to be a component supplier year. Anyway, that's all to say, you asked me about industries. Warehousing is going to continue to grow a lot. I mean, we're not slowing down our ordering. I don't know about you, my house gets packages at a faster rate than it's ever gotten them before. Perk of having kids, of course, right? But so warehousing for sure. The new industries, agriculture, construction. These are unstructured environments. These are historically not very saturated in terms of automation, but there are a lot of startups. There are a lot of new entry members into the A3 community that are trying to address that through new solutions. And so keep your eye on those as well. But semiconductors, you saw the chart Brian posted. Semiconductors is going to be important. Electronics, that type of thing, because if the economists are right, and the tensions between the United States and China happen, and this Taiwan conflict potentially happens, we need to be more reliant from a US perspective on having that chip production here in the United States. So a lot of moving parts, but I would look at that one as one for potential investment too.
Well, and that's interesting. You bring up, you mentioned it, I think twice now, is the idea of there's been a lot of significant investments in new manufacturing and production facilities in the US, and how are those places going to thrive? Through automation.
Through automation.
It's definitely, and you look at the job market, and I don't think it's still the last I looked anyway. I don't think it's the case, but for so long it was the case that there were more job openings than there were unemployed people, and it's like you can't fill these jobs even if they're available, and they were.
That's right.
And so all these significant investments are going to lead to more and more reliance on automation.
Peter Sheehan talked about that opening keynote last night a little bit, right? It really is apparent. When you just talk to companies, you do this all the time. When you talk to users or suppliers, doesn't matter what type of company, you ask them what their top challenge is, like 9 out of 10 times it's we can't find and keep people, or we just, it's that, labor related. And part of that isn't due to just the sheer numbers of people not being there in those fields, it's shifting in demographics, right? The labor force is collectively kind of moving through the generations as people retire at the top end, the boomers, and then Gen Y and millennials like us get older, and Gen X get older. Everyone moves through the system, and their expectations of what they want to do for a living change, right? And so as you have these Gen Zs entering the workforce now in large numbers, the problem is we didn't really have the systemic workforce development excitement for them as they were studying to know they should end up in automation and robotics, and there's a good opportunity here. We kind of missed that opportunity earlier on.
Yeah.
So our work now is kind of catching up, telling people this is an exciting place for a rewarding career. There's going to be jobs, there are today, good paying careers with the automation companies in this room and beyond. But that knowledge and that pipeline isn't there. How do we create it? Well, it's no easy task. It's collaboration among a lot of different agencies and companies, and that's one of the things we're working on a lot, is certification and training programs that can help get us there.
Yeah, and this, another one of the things that you go into that I always appreciate, and just in having conversations with you, is what types of different technologies are helping to drive growth too? Because we can say machine vision sales are up and robotics are up, but what are the different types of companies that are helping to drive growth? And it's interesting, right? Like this morning we had CEOs of 2 different companies come up to us, and what they do is somewhat new. Like one company was talking about functional safety for humanoids, and another was talking about something very similar. Like,
Yeah.
you know, safety for robotics and kind of forward looking to humanoids. But what other technologies are you excited about, and are you seeing as growth drivers in the space?
I'll give you maybe an answer you might expect, but interesting to me are the enabling technologies between the different hardwares that we're aware of, that we kind of came up with historically, right? When I talk about hardware manufacturers historically, I'm referring to like machine vision cameras or robot arms and the hardware, everyone kind of understands it. There's companies here, lots of them, that do battery hot swapping, right? Like power management solutions. There are companies that do software-based agents, like AI agents, things that can stitch the software side to that hardware and enable a better solution. You mentioned some on the vision side. There's perception systems, sensing systems. So it's that slice of companies that they've been present, but now they're really engaged because they see they can engage with the hardware and the software people and make everything work appropriately together to solve customers' challenges, right? So it's that convergence, it's those types of companies I'm really seeing a groundswell with. But of course we have a lot of dedicated great hardware and software manufacturers across the board.
Yeah.
But that's only going to continue to grow. A lot of innovation happening in that side of the business too.
Yeah, and I want to circle back to the humanoid thing in a minute, but you nailed it, right? And I've kind of beat this to death over the years, but it's true. It's kind of a personal interest of mine, is the convergence of different technologies to solve new problems for people, right? Like you're seeing companies now, like they might have the word robotics in their name. They don't actually make robots. They make some sort of enabling technology for robots.
That's right.
And it's like, I was at an event, a Schneider Electric event, last year, a couple of months ago, and they were talking about the importance of data centers for AI, which makes a lot of sense, right? You need that compute power, and cloud computing is obviously becoming increasingly important. One thing that caught me off guard was like all these innovations that are being made in plumbing for cooling of the data centers, and that's just like one. I've used that example a few times, but like here, you look over there and you look at the different colored lanyards, and there are companies in here that integrate all those technologies into one system that solve new problems, and that's like the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the amount of times data centers come up in conversations I've had, either from members asking about it or just companies that are engaged in that side of, that's their customer base, is risen dramatically year over year. I mean, even locally to me, they're talking about in Michigan putting in data centers. I know locally it's created kind of an uproar with some of the residents who are maybe averse to having a data center nearby. And so, in the thriving communities on Facebook groups, you're getting some interesting conversations. But you're totally right. Data centers, everything that is in the value chain of data center production, much like other industries, so cooling, supply, electrical, power generation, all of that has a potential plug-in to what we're doing here with automation, because to create those facilities, they need to be modernized facilities. They can't be outdated. And so, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, and I think of the warehouse. A lot of the same systems, a lot of the same technologies being applied in sort of the factory, in the warehouse, but warehouses are different. There are a lot of different types of automation technologies being applied from inbound to outbound. I wanted to ask about lights out. The concept of lights out, what's that?
Dark factories?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't heard that one before. That's nice. Lights out manufacturing, some people say, well, we're kind of there, but you still need at least a little bit of human in the loop. Lights out warehousing, maybe a little further away. I just wanted to get your take. Like, you get to talk to a lot of different companies. What are you seeing there? What would it take for us to get there? And
it's a really fascinating question to think about. But one, I think I always come back to, there's always going to need to be people at some level of the process.
Yeah.
So you create basically, let's call it a fully automated facility. And you have a lot of automation doing things autonomously. The humans need to be monitoring that. There's also support staff for the facility that need to come in, keep the lights on, keep it clean potentially. There are operational and oversight roles that are going to be created if you have that much technology. I mean, I understand that one person could potentially use technology to understand disparate data that's coming in, but you're still going to need those people. And if you have more automation, you need more of them in order to make sure that you're analyzing properly. And so I think we're a ways out from just let's create a facility that's just going to run, and I'm just going to check and see if it's on my phone, and no one's ever going to be there.
Yeah.
But certainly the trend is toward using more automated tools, because in warehouses you brought up, they're having trouble finding the people to do some of the stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
So they're changing processes. They're bringing in AMRs. They're using robotics and collaborative arms and vision systems to handle the packages and bring the goods to person, right? They're doing things like that. And so technology is going to fill that gap, absolutely.
Yeah, and absolutely. You know, we talk about like, it gets beat, this also gets beaten, but you know, the term dull, dirty, dangerous, like that's like the factory floor, that's what robots come in and do. I mean, in warehousing, like, imagine having a job where you're lifting 50-pound boxes up and down all day, sometimes over your head.
Right.
You might not ever hurt yourself, but long term, you're going to have some sort of ailments.
It's repetitive, right? I mean, you're going to wear things down on your body.
So, you know, maybe part of the solution, or just one thing that can kind of help entice people to come work in warehouses and manufacturing facilities in the future, is being able to work alongside these robot systems. And you know, it might be you automate one part of it. You know, you're reading barcodes on parcels and boxes, or maybe it's an entire ASRS system where, you know, it's from the moment the thing comes in to the second it gets put on the pallet, it's automated, but you still do need people, like just for little things, like I think Joe Gemma brought up, like, well, what if the truck backs up to the dock incorrectly? Or just little things, whatever might happen, like a mobile robot runs over a mouse.
Yeah.
And then it's like your Amazon package shows up, you know, whatever. So it sounds like it could be mostly lights out, like maybe like really dark, but not fully dark.
Yeah, it's application dependent, right?
Yeah.
It's how much extra value are you actually going to get in your industry, your application, by making it as fully dark as possible. I believe that there's probably a line of diminishing returns that kicks in at some point, that once you have a certain amount of automation, you're in stride, you're making the highest margins, it's most beneficial for your company. But in some cases, right, you could identify those applications where a dark facility would be the ideal, and in which case they'll strive to achieve it. And that's the beauty of this community, is they're constantly innovating and pushing boundaries. So we'll see if it's going to be possible. But.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I've heard people in the past shut down things like, we're never going to have autonomous driving. Well, it's like, well, everyone I talk to about lights out, they're like, maybe. It's not no.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right. And maybe in certain places for certain things.
Right.
But I think when people think about that, are we going to have dark factories? They immediately jump to every single production factory, every single warehouse, everything overnight, switch flips, it's all automated completely. Unlikely, I would say. Very unlikely.
Yeah.
But for certain industries, you're making something that's dangerous, maybe it's using chemicals or something, who knows, and it's a liability potentially. Maybe it makes sense. So we'll see.
It'll be interesting to follow. Another thing that will be interesting to follow that I promised to circle back on was Humanoids. And just a few minutes ago, you guys announced that you're doing a Humanoid Pavilion on the show floor at Automate, co-sponsored by NVIDIA, which is super exciting. Talk about that a little bit, but also tell me, like, what are you seeing, when you get to talk to a lot of cool companies a lot. What are you seeing in humanoids? When do you expect them to be more widespread? And I know Jeff offered his thoughts, but I'd love yours as well.
Yeah, no, we're super thrilled to have NVIDIA on board as a sponsor for our Humanoid Pavilion at Automate that we just announced a few minutes ago. Look, the vision for that is we've done the HRF conference 2 times before, and as Jeff mentioned, it doubled in size. We saw the interest, the quality of companies who attended and spoke. So we need to be out front leading and helping educate good and bad, pros and cons, you know, skeptics and optimists. We need to be out there. That's part of our mission. And so that's why we said, what better place could we do those things and deliver on that value than at the place we already have as an industry that brings together 50,000 people, you know, over 1,000 exhibitors, 400,000 square feet of stuff they can walk out and actually touch and see, right? It's at Automate. And so it naturally just kind of came together. We're super excited to see the response to it. I think it's going to be tremendous, personally. And your second question to me was what are my thoughts generally on kind of the viability of humanoids and forward-looking. I would say I went to IREX in December, and that was a great show in Tokyo. There were a lot of, I'll call them humanoid-type products in a lot of booths there. But they weren't all bipedal humanoids, and this kind of feeds into Mike Chico's closing point there, right?
Yeah.
I think the jury is out on the form factor, the most popular form factor for humanoids in the future. I think the idea of them is a self-sufficient automated system that can navigate brownfield environments and do human-like tasks. But for every brownfield facility at different customer locations, the optimal package is probably going to look a little different. So there's probably going to be a space in the market for wheeled humanoid, two-arm wheeled robots. There's probably going to be a space for bipedal humanoid robots. I mean, we're seeing Agility, deploy their robots. We've seen Figure deploy their robots, and others. And then to Mike's point, there's going to be alienoids potentially, right? There's going to be like 5-arm robots and whatnot. So I do see a future where that's possible. But the real stumbling blocks, the real things as an industry we have to overcome right now, it's the safety, number one.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. And I understand why Elon Musk says the same things he does sometimes. But he's in a position himself and with his companies where he's trying to pull the zeitgeist, kind of the thought process forward, pull society forward to what if type scenarios. Even if he, I think, deep down knows that like we're not in a spot this year to have whatever, 100,000, 200,000 humanoid robots in our homes.
Yeah.
Or everyone's going to have one. But he's trying to pull everyone forward and kind of disrupt that a little bit. So it's going to be longer. I agree with Jeff there. It's not going to be overnight, but once these safety and other hurdles are overcome, I think you're really going to see some acceleration with deployments.
I mean, there's not much more exciting right now in the market in terms of buzzwords. It's beyond buzzwords. These are tangible products now, but then humanoids. But as far as them being in the home, well, it's like, for me, it's twofold, and I bet it's similar for you. It's like, I would love that. That would be great. I have little kids, so it would be about 90 seconds until that thing is getting tipped over.
It's getting tipped over. My house, you have kids, young kids. Anyone out there with young kids? Your house is never clean. There's stuff everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
You clean it up, 5 seconds later it's dirty.
Right.
Now I get, we are come leaps and bounds, automation can navigate, but a humanoid walking around, a 200-pound metal machine, it's as tall as me, walking around, doesn't give me a lot of confidence that it's not going to fall, injure my kid, or step on its toe, and whatever. There's just a million things that go through my head. And so while yes, I would love it. I would love not to fold laundry. I would love not to do dishes. All the things.
Now
Pick my house up for me. Yeah, great. But prove to me it's safe. It's basically zero risk, or close to it with young kids, and I'll seriously consider it at that point.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of companies out there working on just that, and I very much look forward to it, and I can't wait to see the humanoid pavilion at Automate. I'm geeked out about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for the next couple of years that things you expect to see in industrial automation, or things you hope to see?
Yeah, I do think we're going to move the needle with policy. That's one area where there's a lot of attention and momentum. Again, it's not without its challenges. Of course, anytime you're trying to do things with bipartisan legislation, it has its risks. But there's interest within the administration, within Congress, I'll say, generally. There's a recognition that automation technology is kind of the key to unlock where we want to end up with manufacturing, where we want to end up with some of the workforce issues. So I believe in the next couple of years we're going to see a very different, more positive and conducive environment for automation from a policy standpoint here in the United States. That's one thing I look for. The other thing I look for is continuing of the convergence we talked about. It's just going to continue. I do anticipate additional merger and acquisition activity, especially if some of the things Brian Bolio said is likely to start happening as we get closer to 2030. The companies that were paying attention to their margins, kind of monitoring growth areas and whatnot, may be in a different place than companies who are just charging ahead business as usual, and we might see joint ventures and things. So a little bit more of that, and just more solutions generally.
Yeah.
More applications in more industries. Agriculture is going to look a lot different. Today, they can't find the people to and keep the people to work, sowing crops and things like that they need.
Yep.
So they're going to turn to technology.
Yeah.
Eventually that ROI is going to click. And I think we're closer to that point than we ever have been before. So not just ag, but construction too. We talked about life sciences, medical, aging population. Healthcare needs are real. Hospital automation is unsaturated right now. So yeah.
Still, food continues to grow too. More automation companies popping up there, trying to solve these, problems that have kind of plagued companies for a while. As these new technologies advance and work together, solving new problems. I think agriculture is a really good example of an industry that uses all these different types of technologies together to solve problems. It's robotics, it's motion control, a lot of times it's AI, it's vision, sometimes it's non-visible imaging if you're looking to spot bruises on an onion.
Or bruises or insects, sure.
So that's a good one, and there's so many others. And I could sit here and ask you a million questions. Selfishly, I would like to. I know how busy you are. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you want to mention before we go?
Nothing in particular other than I guess I would just say this moment that we're in is kind of what I opened with yesterday. It's never been a more exciting and rewarding time to evaluate automation as a solution for your company, right? Either if you're producing something or you're a startup or you're an existing company in our space, there's never been a better time for you to make your case to your customers than today. With all this push towards reshoring and we don't have the people, you don't, customer, have the person. So turn to us, let us show you we can help.
Yeah.
But users, never been a better time to approach. Ease of deployment, artificial intelligence, training robots with your voice or there's just so much. And so we're in an exciting moment. Jump in to the pool with both feet. That's my message. Just jump in. Ask that first question. Engage with that first email, whatever you have to do. It's time. And let's move forward. Yeah.
For those companies looking to start their automation journey or to expand upon it, or anyone just has questions in general, I would encourage you to join A3 if you haven't already. Visit automate.org, leverage the excellent team of professionals they've put together over the years, and you guys are growing rapidly. It's crazy, but there's so many of you now. Yeah. Incredibly helpful, great organization. That's where you should begin. If you have any questions, again, it's automate.org. And if you have questions for Alex, I'm happy to pass them along. Manufacturing-matters.com. Alex, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for having me.